All right, let's talk about patience. How can we become more patient? Which I think as a collective, probably we could use a little practice, most of us. Right now, sadly, I do have to, practice patience because we do have a little kitty that we love dearly and we had since, she was a baby, and she unfortunately was diagnosed with cancer, and she doesn't eat anymore. She barely drinks. She's literally shrinking away, and but she's comfortable. She doesn't have pain. The doctor or the vet assured us of that. So we don't want to put her down because she still likes to be petted. She still likes to be in bed with us. But she's just slowly fading away, and that watching and giving her all the time that she needs, even though it's at times heartbreaking. It is also a form of practicing patience. And I think patience is not, this feeling of, I'm biting my nails here, I'm biding my time, I'm pulling out my hair. And it's actually simply, it starts with acceptance. It starts with acceptance that right now, there's nothing we can do. We did it all. Everything has been somehow done to our best abilities right now. If you have voted, you have voted. If you even volunteered at a polling station, good for you. Excellent. So you have done whatever you can. So it's a time to accept. And then the next step of patience is also to realize that patience has the advantage that it really brings you back to the power of being more calm and centered, because that's what patience actually does. It allows you just to be in a place where you shift your mind away from, looking at the watch or turning on the TV all the time or wondering all the time, when the next relief, the outside relief happens, but instead really find that acceptance and that feeling of peace inside of yourself. Now, how do you practice patience? Well, one of the things right now that, to be honest, again, I have to also practice is to not always turn on the news and check on it every 5 minutes. So just keep it off for a while. Keep it off for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and just notice that in those 15 minutes, nothing happens, most likely. Or if something has happened, great. You haven't really missed a lot because these things trickle in. And also when you keep it off, you just feel like, well, my impulse control gets stronger. Same thing with, this impatience of your texting someone or emailing someone or calling someone, which these days unfortunately rarely happen, but you expect a call back or you expect to hear back from that person within a few minutes. And how many of you feel impatient about that if it doesn't happen? And so again, turning maybe even the phone off or not looking always at your emails and just being okay with, I'm gonna in 30 minutes check again, or in an hour, and extending this time simply because you want to learn that patience as something that gives you a sense of, I'm in charge of how I'm feeling. I don't need the good news or the response in order to feel better about whatever situation I'm in. Now, another way to practice patience is breathing. Now, breathing is certainly something that in general makes you feel calmer. Now, there is a saying, and I totally believe in that our mind controls our breath, and our breath feeds back to our minds. And so, when you, for example, think about anxiety and stress, and you notice how your breath goes faster, it's like, the breath basically is feeding back this stress hormone release of, well, we have to oxygenate the body to get ready to fight or flight. And when we are slowing down our breath, deliberately slowing down, that feeds back to the mind, okay, so the breath is slow, it's deep. That means actually we are relaxed. Something must be okay now. So the mind calms down. It's a beautiful feedback mechanism. And so one of the patience building breath is this so-called 1-minute breath. Well, you don't have to do it for 1 minute, but it's very simple. You inhale for, let's say, 5 seconds. You hold the breath for 5 seconds. You exhale for 5 seconds. And then you hold the breath again after the exhale for 5 seconds. And then you go back to the inhale. And eventually you go up to 20 seconds. And that would be, or 15 seconds, and that's going to give you a whole minute. So when you do 15 seconds in, holding, exhaling, and holding again, that gives you a whole minute. And what the patience building process there is that when you are in that building of the seconds and you want to really, really inhale because you have exhaled for such a long time, just don't do it. Just wait, just count a few more seconds until you're there. And then slowly, and not just, with a rush or the impulse of getting as much oxygen in as possible, inhale again. Now, what happens is that you're ultimately learning to trust that there will be another breath coming. There will be a moment where you can let go of the air on the exhale. It strengthens your mind to not always have to have immediate relief, immediate comfort. It actually helps your mind to be in a place of, I can be okay with that discomfort. I can accept that this is what it is right now. And there will be more oxygen either coming in or more air going out. And that's really, really powerful. A lot of people feel not only that their mind is more clear and calm after just 5 minutes of this breath, but it also strengthens your trust and belief in yourself. It definitely helps you to be more in control of your mind, and with that also be more patient. Now, you can, of course, also practice patience by putting yourself into situations where you need to be patient. You can simply go to a checkout line that is the longest and just notice, okay, I'm not picking the shortest to rush through it, but I gotta pick the longest, and I just breathe. I stay patiently in that line, watch these carts slowly empty, and I just enjoy that feeling of acceptance. This is what it is. Maybe your mind can go somewhere and appreciate all the things you buy, or get inspired what other people have purchased. But in the end, it is really about practicing that it's flowing, but it doesn't have to flow on this high speed. It can actually also be a little slower. Or another way of being patient is simply to be in a place in nature where you're watching a tree that is very patient, or you're watching animals that, we have horses, so watching them grazing patiently. It always is something that really teaches you about that slower rhythm in life. And that can also give you certainly a greater sense of, okay, my patient muscles is getting stronger and stronger. Now, when you feel like that, patience is getting somehow, more into, your toolbox on how to deal with life. Ultimately, what you're going to find out is that with this patience as the first step, you are more in control then, because everything is slower. Patience is a natural, reducer of that speed with which we go through life. You automatically know from that slower vantage point that you can actually also choose more how you see the world. You can choose that reality is nothing but 90% of interpretation. So you probably know that. I mean, you may have this situation where, let's say, your neighbor doesn't greet you, and you may get upset about this. You feel like, oh, why am I not greeted? Why am I just snubbed? And you tell your spouse about it, and he or she says, well, maybe the person was thinking about something else, or was so busy, or had still to deal with a hangover from the night before. And totally lets it roll off his back. And you may still be upset about it. Now, this is where you see that reality in the eyes of your spouse is completely different than reality in your own eyes. And there are many ways. Right now, for example, my wife does not care whatsoever about the election. Perfectly fine, because she doesn't really have any great interest in that. And so for her, just talking about it and feeling much more on this higher perspective and saying, no matter what happens, we will always be able to learn and grow from it, is her perspective that is much more calm and relaxed than maybe my perspective, which is, I know exactly who needs to win in order to save the planet. So you can see that is, again, also 90% of interpretation and 10% of reality, or 10% of facts. And that is something also that really patience can give you, just the way of choosing. How do I want to choose to see this situation we are in right now? And choosing to really also going to a place where you can say that, well, I want to trust. I want to learn from this more calmer place where I can choose on how to see the world and how to go about the future. I want to choose to trust more. And that is something that I also feel is incredibly important, because right now, when things are uncertain, often what we are only left with is trust. And there are three ways of trusting. And the first way of trusting is that trusting in others, trusting in those sources outside of you. And this is how we grow up. When you are a child, you ultimately have to trust that you're going to be fed and clothed and taken care of and diaper changed. And that's the trust that you need. And that is because you don't really have the resources and the skills to do those things for yourself. And that trust is something that, unfortunately, we often continue to hold on to. That is the trust that, you see in other people know it better. The news going to tell us what's going to happen. The good friend who's going to, give you the right advice. That's the person to trust in. It's all nice and good. But at the end, it does make other people and outside sources that from which you draw the sense of comfort and peace in. And it makes you feel somehow that you're out of the equation. It's not very empowering. And it's certainly also not very sustainable. So the second layer of trust, which is the trust in yourself, that is certainly something that is right now much more important to tap into and to practice than just looking for the outside for that. And after the break, I'll tell you what you can do to build the trust in yourself to also, again, go through these times with much more calmness and peace, no matter whether we have certainty or not. So stay tuned. Hi, Dr. Friedemann here. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about fear and anxiety, here you'll find guided meditations, webinars, and interviews with some of the most renowned experts in the field of empowerment. Delve into the over 230 videos and more to come every week.